2021 was a horrific year for violence against police. 346 officers were shot in the line of duty in 2021. That is the highest number recorded since the Fraternal Order of Police started tracking the data. 63 of those officers were killed. Joining me now, National Fraternal Order of Police Vice President and Houston police officer Joe Gamaldi. Joe, good morning. And you say, I want to add this here, you say an officer was shot every 25 hours in the U.S. last year. If you break down this data, that's staggering.
Yeah, it was an absolutely horrible year for law enforcement in 2021. As you mentioned, we had 346 officers shot, which is the highest number we've seen since we started tracking this. 63 officers were killed. Ambush attacks were up 115%. And I think it's very easy when I talk about all these statistics and numbers for people to get lost that these officers are people. Every number is a father, a son, a mother, a daughter who swore an oath to protect their community, and now they've either been shot or they're dead. And I mean, just people like Officer Holly from the Baltimore Police Department, who is a mother of four, who was murdered in cold blood in an ambush attack by two monsters. That's what we're dealing with every single day. And you know what? There's been politicians, media, and people out there who are just grifters who've been demonizing law enforcement, and we're suffering the consequences of that. We're being shot, we're being killed, and it's far past time for the violence against law enforcement to stop, the demonization of us to stop. Otherwise, we're going to continue to see these historic numbers of officers being shot and killed.
You know what? I'm from Dallas. You're in Houston. What is going on in Harris County? I was reading about it. Maybe this is the shooting you're referencing about the police officer that was sitting outside at the Galleria just having lunch. It was shot. Is that the same? If that's not the same shooting, I'm sorry. But overall, Harris County, I cannot believe what's happening down there. This is Texas. This is the state of law and order. And I'm just shocked at what's happening with your state, with your county. And don't get me started on what I'm seeing here in New York City and what we're seeing in Los Angeles.
Yeah, absolutely. What you're seeing is the results of the toxic cocktail that have been shoved down the throats of law-abiding Americans. And we have rogue prosecutors who are running wild, letting people out over and over and over again. We have bail reform, which has been an unmitigated disaster. Here in Harris County, we've seen 150 people murdered by people who were already out on multiple felony bonds. And yet they were allowed to get out over and over again. And now 150 people are dead. This is completely insane. And now you have the DA in New York, the newly minted one in Manhattan. Now, keep in mind, shootings are up in New York by 102%. And his solution to this, I mean, I couldn't possibly make up the level of stupidity, is to start letting people go that commit aggravated robberies, to decriminalize resisting arrest. I mean, this is his plan? Have we learned nothing from the last 2 years of crime and disorder in New York? I mean, you can't even find a U-Haul truck in the tri-state area because everybody's moving out. And the sad part is what they're doing is damaging the hardworking, law-abiding people in our communities, and instead they're siding with the criminals, and it's got to stop.
No, Joe, I completely agree with you. I want to bring in the other Joe Concha, into all of this. Joe Concha, you and I have had a lot of discussions about this, about what's happening here in New York. He's down in Houston, what's happening in Harris County. It's a travesty. And to his point, he brought up Alvin Bragg. That is a George Soros-backed candidate that's now going to be the new DA here in Manhattan. And then you've got Eric Adams, who won here in New York because he said he was going to deal with crime in this city. I'm not sure how these two are going to get along. They're smiling for now, but I think it's all rainbows and sunshine for another month, and that's about it.
Oh, until somebody who is let out for committing aggravated assault actually kills somebody or actually injures somebody who's very important, perhaps in Eric Adams' world, will the smiles go away. But whether it's Manhattan, whether it's Harris County, overall, Joseph, so we could differentiate just right now, 16 cities across the country have recorded record homicide rates. Are you surprised that the president of the United States, right, who's supposed to protect the people of the United States ultimately, hasn't had even one photo op, one major speech regarding violent crime in this country, considering he's polling in the 30s on his handling of crime, by the way? Why is the president ignoring this problem? Because I haven't seen any major speeches on it. Have you?
No, I certainly haven't seen any major speeches on it, and I don't know why there's been silence from the White House and from the president and from the vice president. I can't begin to understand how this isn't front-page news in every single city. As we saw in 2020, we saw over 20,000 homicides, which we hadn't seen since the mid-90s. So this problem's been trending for a while now. In 2021, we outpaced that number. So at what point is everybody going to wake up and realize that we need to embrace the rule of law, we need to vehemently prosecute violent crimes, and we need to embrace broken windows theory? Because believe it or not, the American police officer delivered historic crime reductions in the 20 years prior to this violent crime wave what they're seeing. But you know what? These communities, as the ones you mentioned, that have seen a huge spike in homicides, that highest recorded on record, the folks that live there deserve to have safe communities. They deserve to have opportunities. And they're being robbed of that, no pun intended, by these Soros-Puppet DAs.
Yeah. Joe Gamaldi, I'll tell you what, we've heard you loud and clear. And again, we thank our police in Harris County, in New York, and across this country for keeping us safe. They are heroes to all of us. And who's the first person you call when something goes wrong? You call the police, and we thank them. Joe, thank you, sir. We appreciate it.